particular morning, I must have read a news item, or I may have seen something on television that triggered off that story, because I wrote 26 stories in something like 4 weeks. And I was writing almost a story a day. And they were being simultaneously put out there, posted as ebooks. So the pace was manic. It was like a torrent. And I could not stop it. I didn't wish to stop it. And after the 26 stories were written, they became, the ebook was available. And then, of course, the physical book published by Simon & Schuster is out there and selling quite briskly, especially after Lilette Dubé has enacted 5 of those stories. So I'm just so happy to see the way Lockdown Liaisons has snowballed. And it was with the support of a very good editor and a superb team at Simon & Schuster. We were all working from our homes. It was all virtual and remote, and there was no eye contact, but we still managed. So a big thank you to the whole team.
Shobha, I've read Lockdown Liaisons, and a couple of stories really fascinated me, the early ones especially, because I skipped a few in the middle. This one about Malibu Mansions, and you know, you've touched about the life of the chowkidar in this high-rise, very elitist apartment complex, and how the residents have, you know, whereas they've been taking exceptional work from him, he's been loyal, he's been dutiful, and yet how cynical perhaps this, you know, the heroine's husband is towards Shuklaji. And the name you've chosen is, you know, very resonant with somebody from the eastern part of India who's come over as an immigrant to Mumbai and who's been very loyal to all his, you know, employers, benefactors, but who's suddenly feeling neglected and lost. And the heroine, I mean, the protagonist is actually very sensitive and gentle, despite her husband being rather nasty and cynical towards this guy. I thought that was very humane, a very, very touching story. And there's another one about this person who, during this massive migration from the cities to the villages, who's concerned about his, the lady he knows, who's helped him emotionally when his wife and family are away, and how he sort of, you know, the tension that is going on in his mind. Should he go to the village? Should he leave her, Suman? Or should he stay back? Now, these are very touching stories, and I'm surprised that somebody like you, who, you know, touches all the top celebrities, parties, who's around all the rich people, that you could be so sensitive and so humane in your writing. I mean, I was quite surprised. And so where did you get this sense of, you know, the urge to reflect upon day-to-day people and their difficulties and traumas and tribulations?
I am quite amused by the question, sir, because it somehow, it implies that if you belong to a certain segment of society, you are automatically insensitive, you lack empathy, you lack any kind of fellow feelings, and you're caught up in some sort of a bubble of your own creation. And the impression that I seem to drift from some great and glamorous event to the next event, and my entire life is celebrity driven. It really does amuse me in retrospect, because if that were indeed my life, and I wish it were that wonderful, I don't think I'd be working as hard as I do. I could be just an extremely pampered and spoiled and self-indulgent woman, drifting from these great soirees in Mumbai and across the world, or in Delhi. But that is not the reality. And also, it's not fair to think that every person from an affluent background, which they may be born into or been raised in, is necessarily impervious to life around them. And particularly for a writer, if I were to live in such a closed way myself, I wouldn't be writing at all. So it's easy to stereotype people. There are many ways of doing it. It can be because of the way the person's appearance is, or the segment of society they belong to, or maybe the many fantasies about such a person's life. And I guess there's something about my persona that attracts those kind of comments. I have no problem with it, but I have to tell you that a writer's job is to be sensitive towards every segment of their society and not selectively towards the society they themselves may be a part of. I'd be less of a human being, forget a writer, if I could shut my heart and my eyes and my feelings to the people we interact with, you and I and all of us on a daily basis, whether it's security staff, the people who work at home, our help, the watchmen. These are people who turn invisible for a lot of people. It has never been so for me. They are a part of my life as much as any other person who's a part of my life. And my respect for them is exactly what it is. And it's reflected in my stories and in my work.
Shobha, before we let you go, yes, first you, yes.
One question about which I'm really curious, because you have no hesitation about your age, is that in those times when you were a young girl, and I'm pretty sure you had the same personality of slightly rebellious and why not do this kind of nature. I don't know, I'm just trying to guess. What used to be the reaction of the senior ladies of your family and your mother? Because why I'm asking this question is that I want to hear something from you about feminism, and also I want to know about your understanding of feminism in today's world, where at least erudite people are talking about feminism as is equal to equality, is equal to human rights. So I would love to hear a little bit about this. Maybe if you want to put in your personal thing, fine. Otherwise, in general.
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to, because unless you understand the personal, you can never understand the political. I believe that. And every action of ours, whether we label it that or not, is essentially a political act. Who we choose to marry, which college our parents send us to, whether we marry, the question about our children, what the values we impart to them, who we think are appropriate partners in our children's lives, which educational stream they should follow. These are all socio-political decisions. You can't see them in isolation. So I come from a bureaucratic family and a very conservative family at that, but I have to qualify, conservative does not mean a lack of progressive thinking. It just means a certain way of life which is not exactly ultra-modern. So I had every opportunity to be the person I am. I don't really know whether my family approved or disapproved, but all I can say and thank them in retrospect, though my parents are not alive, is that they did not in any way impinge on any of those decisions or stop me from pursuing whatever it is that I wanted, with or without their approval. So they respected my sense of identity and my sense of independence. And without that kind of maybe not always expressed, but certainly implied support, I would have been a completely different person. With my mother, there was nothing but unconditional love. She was intuitive, intelligent, wonderful, and I would say the closest emotional bond I will ever experience with anyone in my life will remain the bond I shared with my mother. So she was not judgmental at all. She did not understand my words. She didn't have to. She understood me. And I think a lot of times our parents make that mistake of trying to pigeonhole their children into roles and definitions that you don't let the children decide that. You decide it on the basis of what society wants them, what wants of you and of them, and a certain conformist kind of thinking, which I'm just happy that my parents were free of that and progressive enough to let their 4 children pursue whichever academic field they chose to. And in my case, they just let me be. I was the youngest. And I don't think my choices were at all understood. But I didn't beat a drum about it and say, oh my God, I'm so misunderstood, I'm a victim. Not at all. I was very sure from a very young age as to who I am. And that strength, I think, definitely came from my mother, never making me feel apologetic about who I am. So when we talk about feminism, I do not believe in any kind of a militant advocacy of values. I do not believe in an ideology. I do not believe that there can be categories which says, if you conform to these rules, you can call yourself a feminist. If not, then you're not a feminist or you're a failed feminist. I know a lot of men who are far better feminists than the acclaimed and out there ladies who call themselves feminists, because the men are working sincerely and hard in their own lives and with the women in their lives and towards their attitude to society and women at large in a way that is very sensitive, extremely equal, and based on just one thing, the principle of justice. There's nothing else to it. We are all human beings. We all deserve a good, happy life, devoid of pressures, enforced either by society around us most of the time, or even legal pressures. So it's not that I believe in legislation and policy change. I just believe in being respected, and I don't think that too much. I respect men as much as I respect the second word. So if all that sense of equal respect of each other, it will just be a revolution. So if you choose to call me a feminist, I'm proud to be called that. If you choose to call me something else, it doesn't matter to me.
Shobha, fantastic. And before we wind up, we can't possibly let you off without mentioning some of your grand ability to kickstart conversation, discussion, controversy by making statements which capture headlines. And we've had you, calling a policeman with a very rotund belly as heavy bandobast. You called another film actress a lassie who lacks oomph for some specific reason, perhaps. You were bold enough to say, I eat beef, so come and kill me, or capture me, or do me in, or whatever, bure din aa gaye hain, such like. So while we marvel your ability to be bold, not to mince your words, where do you get this grand ability to stay on in the news, and does it come spontaneously, or do you have to think about it?
It's just the person I am, and I'm willing to take my chances and the responsibility that comes with putting myself out there, which millions of others hesitate to do because they're afraid of retribution. Well, that's something that does not in any way intimidate me. I will continue to speak my mind, and it is what I believe in, it's what I live by. So if it generates what, and I have to athlete, he was given free bariatric surgery in Mumbai and became a healthier and a much more active policeman, and publicly thanked me for that.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So, ladies and gentlemen, before I end, I want to read a few lines from a foreword to Shobha De's fantastic book, Lockdown Liaisons. This is the book I have. It's extremely deceptive in its title. Most people would think that it deals with extramarital relationships during liaisons, like the kind which happened in Great Britain with their leader, or with various others who were locked up in the COVID lockdown, which has nothing to do with extramarital relationships. It's a very humane, a lot of stories about very everyday people whom, the kind of people you and I meet, about a very personal sort of rendition about their lives, their difficulties. It's a fantastic book, and I want to read this little paragraph. She captures the fragile zeitgeist of the pandemic in her own unique way through stories that don't provide an escape into a la-la land, but rather stories of love that will make you sometimes smile, sometimes frown, but at all times understand the subterranean world of shifting human emotions. The author in her stories don't shy away from the tremendous uncertainties of the world as we know, but rather help us to confront and understand it all just a little better. Fantastic. Shobha De, a great hand to you. All of Bhopal is clapping for you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. I look forward to coming and seeing all of you in person very soon.
Can you show the audience to her? It'll be very interesting if she can get a glimpse of the audience.
I would love to do that. Hello. Namaste. Namaste. How wonderful to see all of you. Thank you so much for listening to me so patiently. Thank you, Bhopal. And do invite me again. I'm sorry about not being there today with you. Yeah. Thank you so much.
And before we sign off, we'd like to present to you a memento of our festival, which is a painting done by the tribal Padma Shri artist Bhuri Bai. We will ensure that it is couriered to you. You can tell us the address if you stay on wherever you want it. Thank you so much. This is the... presented very, with great... presented to Shobha Deji. We are honored to have had her here. She unfortunately had to rush to Pune because her elder sister was not well. Okay, thank you.
Do we have Kavita Shahji here? Or do we have anyone from Sri Layam Natyashree Academy?